Knicks fans are holding their breath right now after OG Anunoby limped off the court after grabbing his right lower leg from this non-contact injury. Unable to return to the game, we're going to talk about what exactly could have happened here and how serious this non-contact injury might be. Welcome back, everybody. I'm Dr. Brian Sutterer, and the goal is always on this channel is to teach you more about the medical side of the sports world. So a lot of concern, of course, with Knicks fans. We saw DeJounte Murray just yesterday evening, I believe it was, suffer an Achilles rupture. And so these non-contact injuries, we always hear about non-contact. We see somebody grab for the lower leg, the ankle, etc., and we always worry about an Achilles. I'm here to tell you, though, I don't think this is an Achilles rupture. The reason I don't think this is an Achilles rupture is there's no direct load and overstretch on the Achilles. Also, we have the benefit now of the Knicks have officially ruled him out for the game with a foot sprain, and you would not classify an Achilles injury as a foot sprain. You might call it an ankle strain because a strain implies injury to a muscle or a tendon, whereas a sprain implies injury to a ligament. And so if we take the Knicks medical staff at their word of their confidence of this being a foot sprain, that gives us clues about a foot ligament instead of a foot or an ankle muscle or tendon. And really, again, in these positions here, there's no direct load push off like we saw with DeJounte Murray. Even though he grabs down around that lower part of the leg, there's no explosive mechanism that would worry us for an Achilles rupture. This moment right after he grabs, he really doesn't even put that much weight on his right foot to then explode off. And you can see how his face, he's already actually starting to react before he even goes to push off. And so I think the injury actually occurred just before he grabs the ball. And so right here, his right foot, pay attention to how his right foot is pointed and planted to the ground as he catches this ball. His foot is planted down, and then he's trying to push himself in this direction over to the side. And so to do that, he's going to be pushing through a plantar flexed foot that's going to then go into some abduction with the forefoot, the end of his foot pushing outward as his body's momentum is trying to carry him in that direction. That can cause this twisting force throughout the foot that can cause a ligament sprain or a ligament tear in the foot. And so you can see then he pushes right there. His left leg comes down, and then you see the reaction in his face already grimacing before he even puts his weight on and push off the right. So I think the injury occurred here again on this plant. That subtle twist, that step right there, that twist, forefoot abduction pushing outward as the foot twists down into plantar flexion would fit with a foot, specifically a midfoot ligament sprain. Now, if we go to our biodigital anatomy tool here, let's talk about what this sprain might be. Remember, sprain implies injury to a ligament. So we're going to first get rid of all of our muscles because we, of course, do not care about them in this instance. Now, if we were dealing with an ankle sprain, they would have said ankle sprain. And this is pretty easy to determine in the locker room. Is it, your ankle that hurts? Is it your foot that hurts? And so the fact they're calling this a foot sprain right away, I think we can zero in on these midfoot ligaments. The ones that I'm going to be most concerned about are going to be the Lisfranc ligament complex. Technically, those are the ligaments that run between the tarsal bones, which are going to be these bones in the middle of the ankle, and the long bones of the foot, the metatarsals. Specifically, there's a connection between this bone right here, called the medial cuneiform, to the base of the second metatarsal. So right in this region is going to be that classic Lisfranc ligament that helps impart that stability all through the joint. This model is actually wrong. There is no connection here between the first metatarsal and the second metatarsal, and so you get this indirect connection because of that path going from the first to the medial cuneiform, over up through the Lisfranc into the second, and then all the way through the rest of these metatarsals. So the Lisfranc ligament is very important, obviously, in maintaining that stability, that integrity of the midfoot arch, and is a very important injury for the foot. That would be a common mechanism for that forefoot abduction. The forefoot is going to get pushed out in this direction while you're pushing off and changing directions to go this way. That can twist, torsional force through the foot, and a non-contact mechanism for a potential Lisfranc sprain. Now, as you'll notice here, though, there's a ton of ligaments throughout the foot, right? There's a ton of little nondescript ligaments connecting all of these bones, and any of them technically would qualify as a foot sprain. So just because we've heard foot sprain doesn't mean that this has to be the dreaded Lisfranc type of injury. If this turns out to be a Lisfranc injury, then the first step is going to be an MRI. If it's completely torn, especially if there's instability where the bones are widening, that's going to require surgery. His season is going to be over. If it's a mild sprain where there's stability between the bones, meaning the bones don't move when you put weight on and look with an x-ray, that's often something you can treat conservatively, maybe 4 to 6 weeks, protected weight bearing in a boot, gradual return to play depending on the severity. So you're still probably looking at least 2 to 4 weeks, 2 to 6 weeks, depending on the severity if it's a Lisfranc sprain, but more on the mild side. If it's just one of these nondescript foot ligament sprains that aren't really that important for the stability of the foot, this could be a much shorter absence. And so really, I think it comes down to, is this a Lisfranc injury? Is this a different ligament throughout the foot? They might even be describing a plantar fascia strain or a plantar fascia tear as like a foot ligament, which would not be as concerning either. So I think the big thing, number one, is this going to end up being a Lisfranc? Mechanism would suggest potentially, but we have to wait and find out from the MRI. But again, no real concern here for the Achilles, just mechanism doesn't make sense. Lisfranc would be the number one thought on my mind. That's it for the video, everybody. Let me know any questions or comments down below. And until next time, we'll see you later.